Hi, this is the introductory lecture for the concepts we're going to talk about wine marketing and sales. By now you should have listened to our intro class that just explained the outline of how this class is working. This is the first lecture that really gets into the material. So it's going to explain a lot of the concepts. Again, these are pretty important. So this is a lecture that you may want to listen to more than once just because you will need to know these terms. We're going to throw these terms around a lot in class, but this will give you the basic tools you need to go ahead with the rest of the class, okay? So the big three questions that you always want to ask yourself when you're starting a new company, a new brand, a new idea. First one is, how are we unique? Does anyone care about that? As my mom always used to say, what makes you think you're so special? One of the biggest problems we have in the wine industry, there are 150,000 wines for sale in the U.S. market. So how is your wine different? How is anybody's wine different? If you can't answer that in a way that somebody cares about, you got nothing. You're just a commodity. You're just another bottle of wine with a pretty label, but man, there are 150,000 of those. So first question is, what makes us different? You have to answer that question, okay? And for God's sakes, please don't have it be we're a small family winery. What is it, Liz Slater always says, we're a small family winery. We carefully select our vineyards, we handcraft our wines, and we've won some awards. So has everybody else. Don't talk about quality. I have lectured in front of 500 winemakers, and I asked at that lecture, how many of you are not focused on quality when you make your wines? Not a single one of them raised their hand. So please don't talk about we're small, we're special, and we're focused on quality, because everybody is focused on quality. Everybody's got a small family winery. I need to know something more. Give me more to go on, okay? Second thing, and this is an interesting element, what audience can we own? Because the big challenge in the world of wine is that, yeah, there are 70 or 80 million people in America who drink wine. And you're a small winery. How do you get their attention? Well, you can't possibly expect to talk to everybody. So you need to find a way to make a smaller group really connect with you. And I need to know what the name of that group is. You need to explain to me what that group is and how it is you're going to talk to them and be successful with them. So how are we different? What audience can we own? And then the third one is, how many customers do we need? In that opening lecture, I pointed out that if you're selling 3,000 cases of wine, you need to sell 10 cases a day. How many customers do you need to sell 10 cases a day? Most customers buy about a bottle. Couples buy 2, but that still works out to be 1 bottle per customer. So, okay, so now we need 10 cases. That's 120 customers a day. How are we going to get 120 customers a day? You need to do that math. It's not enough to say we're going to open a lemonade stand on the street, and as people walk by, we're going to sell all our lemonade. I want to know, okay, how many people are walking by that street every day? And if there are not enough people walking down that street, then I want to know how you're going to get more people to walk down that street. You need to know how many customers you need. Okay? Those are the big 3 questions. So let's talk about marketing. Marketing is opening the door. It does 3 things. It defines your position. It explains what makes you special and different and desirable. It also helps you understand distribution. We are sold only at the winery. Boy, coronavirus hits and all of a sudden that's a major big new problem. On the other hand, wineries that we're selling or are selling through the distribution network, we're finding particularly well-known brands finding their sales going through the roof during the coronavirus. So if you understand your distribution, that's important. It's going to affect how your business moves forward. And ultimately, marketing supports sales. A couple of examples. Saturday morning, you're sitting at home, the doorbell rings. You open the door, and there in front of you are 2 little girls dressed in green with the little badges all over their front. No. The question isn't if you're going to buy. The question is, how many boxes of those Thin Mints are you going to shell out for, right? Because Girl Scouts have great marketing. By the time their salespeople reach your door, you already have a preconceived notion you're going to buy. Okay? An hour later, knock on the door. You open the door, two very well-dressed young men, skinny black ties, carrying Bibles under the arm, and they want to talk to you about Jehovah's Witnesses. And you close the door and you say, I'm not interested, because Jehovah's Witnesses have really crappy marketing. Now, a couple of years ago, I had a guy in a class who said, but Professor, I am a Jehovah's Witness. And I said, I know, Carl, and you have bad marketing. You need a better plan in order to market your product. So, marketing is preparing the way for sales, getting people predisposed to listen to a sales pitch or predisposed to walk into a store and say, oh, that's the one I want because of marketing. Now, marketing has a little bit of a reputation for being dishonest and ugly. Not necessarily true, and in fact, I always argue that good marketing is never that. But for those of you who say, "Oh, I would never alter anything I do in order to achieve a marketing goal," when you sell your house, what's the first thing you do? Well, the first thing you do is you stage it. You turn on the lights in the house, you bake cookies in the oven, you clean up that trash on the front porch, because when people show up, you want them to see you at your best. When you sell your car, what's the first thing you do? You take it to a detail shop, or you do it yourself, and you clean it and polish it until it looks better than it's looked in the last 10 years. That's the car you're selling. That's what marketing is. Marketing is simply making sure that when people first interact with your brand, they see it in the best possible light. And everybody does marketing. So, the basics behind this business: you need that business plan we talked about in the first lecture. You need the sales projections to say, we need to sell this much wine. You need a sense of how big is the market. Remember those customers walking by the lemonade stand? If only 4 people a day walk down your street, it's going to be pretty hard to sell 100 cases of lemonade. You need to expand your market at that point. And then ultimately, all of this comes to create the USP, the unique selling proposition. What it is that you can say about your brand and your product that nobody else can say, nobody else can take it away from you. You own it, and it's actually attractive to the market. That is one of the essential goals to any marketing campaign. So, the questions you need to ask in order to answer that USP, unique selling proposition: how are you different? Why should people care about that? And how many customers do you need? If you only need 2 customers, then you can aim at some pretty strange and unusual differences and still pull it off. But if you need 100,000 customers, you need a more generally appealing message. Okay? So those are your 3 questions. So as you develop your business plan, you need to understand what you're going to make, where you'll sell it. You need all that financial stuff. But ultimately, that's going to depend on your ability to answer that question: what is your unique selling proposition? What, as my mom would say, what makes you think you're so special? And you need to be able to answer that. Here's the lemonade stand. How many cases can you sell? Where will you sell them? How many customers do you need? How many contacts? If you think about sales, people don't buy things on just out of nowhere. They don't suddenly appear, buy, and disappear. First, they need to hear about you. So you need to create awareness. Then they need to interact with the product in some way, maybe in a store, maybe in a tasting room or something else, but they need to be face-to-face with the product. And then the third element is they need to buy. Each one of those 3 stages is manageable or manipulable in some way. If you are not selling enough, maybe you're not getting enough in that top level. Maybe not enough people know about you. Or maybe enough people know about you, but when it comes face to face with the product, they've heard about this product, they look at it, I don't like that label. Or, lady in the tasting room was kind of rude. Or, that's a solvable problem, but you need to identify it. Are we getting enough people in the top? Is there a problem in that middle? And then finally, are they buying? Yeah, they're buying one bottle. How do we get them to buy more than one bottle? Let's talk about that. Those kind of questions are the essence of marketing. How do we get more people to know about us? And if they know about us, are they attracted? How do we deliver on our promise? And then 3, how do we close the sale? Hugely important. That's what the whole class is about. We talk about estimating the size of your market. How many people are there? Again, there are 350 million people in the US, but only about a quarter of them drink wine, so that's 80 million or so. 80 million people drink wine. Where do they live? Well, we're going to talk about the whole next lecture is all about what the US market is like. But the real key is how many of those will become your customers rather than the customers of somebody else. Or, you want them to become your customers, and ultimately you'd like them to become your brand loyal customers. Not just customers, but customers who come back over and over again. That's the ultimate goal. The way you do that, you create this unique selling proposition. How are you special? You make the only Gewürztraminer that has that has proven to be effective against COVID-19. That's us. That's a golden sales proposition right now. How are you special? We only make wines in half bottles because we focus on restaurants. That's a legitimate differentiation. You need to explain what makes you different, and it needs to be something people care about. We've all seen those ads. These are the best built American trucks assembled from Japanese parts in Mexico. Nobody cares about that. They may want to know what the best built truck is, but all that other stuff is just disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. You need to talk about people and hit them where they live, in their heart. Whoops, sorry about that. I'm getting too excited. Okay, and ultimately, how will that sell wine? So, here are some definitions. Marketing is preparing the ground for sales. Now, I'm going to give you at least 3 definitions for marketing. You need to know at least one of them, by the way. One of them is preparing the ground for sales. Imagine that you own a vineyard. Everything you do in that vineyard, from buying the vineyard to preparing the soil, to laying out the rows, to planting the rootstock, grafting on, trellising, all of that's marketing. Sales, picking the grapes. If you do all the rest of that right, picking the grapes is the easy part. So marketing is preparing for sales. 2 other definitions I like very much. One of them is protecting and enhancing your brand. And we'll talk about this in the two bullets down here. But the sense that the brand is actually worth something, and what you are doing in marketing is making that brand worth something. So that's a legitimate a definition. And the third one, which will be the topic of the next lecture, is ultimately finding a need in the market and then filling it. So the idea being, and this actually first time that particular definition came up in my class, it was because one of my students was a VP at Procter & Gamble, and he was sitting in my class, and I asked students for definitions of marketing, and he came out with that one, and I said, that's a great definition. Yeah, well, he worked at Procter & Gamble for 25 years. So finding a need in the market. What is it that's currently not being produced? And what could we do to get into that market and create a special niche just for ourselves? So 3 good definitions of marketing: preparing the ground for sales, enhancing, protecting the brand, finding a need in the market, and then developing a product to fill it. Sales. Sales is transforming inventory into cash. Okay, think of Rumpelstiltskin. Remember, Rumpelstiltskin had the magical ability to turn straw into gold. What sales does is turn boxes of wine into dollars. I have a friend with a winery. He takes his sales team into the warehouse every year at the end of their sales conference and says, your job is to turn all of this into gold. Sales is transforming inventory into cash. Marketing is protecting and enhancing the brand, and those are not mutually supportive goals. In most cases, if you want somebody to sell more wine, the first thing they'll tell you is, oh, we need to drop the price. When you ask customers what the single biggest element they use to determine the quality of wine, it's how high the price is. So you drop your price, you sell more product, but you've damaged the brand. Marketing, good marketing, allows you to keep the price high and increase your sales. Okay? What's a brand? A brand is a symbol in the customer's mind, and it's a very easy concept once I take it all apart for you. Let's say you own a winery, and you've run this winery, and you're now my age, which is old enough to be retired, and so you've decided, I'm done. Your kids don't want the winery, they couldn't care less, so you've got to sell it. And you find somebody who wants to buy it, and they want to buy the vineyard, and they want to buy the equipment, and they want to buy the tanks and the barrels and the bottles and everything, the whole show. The only thing they don't want to buy is your label, because they don't want to call it Paul Wagner Winery. They want to call it My Wife's Name Winery or something else. So they buy everything, but they say, yeah, but we don't want the label. You now have a perfect measuring stick to determine how successful you've been at building, enhancing, and protecting your brand, because you now have a label to sell. And that label could be worth a whole lot of money, or it could be worth nothing at all. And let me give you a couple of examples. This is a guy 25, 30 years ago who opened a small winery in Napa, wasn't particularly successful at marketing, didn't do a very good job, and in the end sold the winery to one group and sold the label to somebody else. Sold the label for $17,000. That label was in fact Charles Shaw, which is better known as Two Buck Chuck, probably worth millions and millions of dollars right now. Sold for $17,000 because he did a really bad job of marketing. On the other hand, let's look at Joey Wagner at Meiomi, who a few years ago sold Meiomi to Constellation Brands for over $300 million. There are no vineyards. There is no winery. The only thing he really sold was the brand for $315 million. He did great marketing, and Charles Shaw did horrible marketing. And the difference is obvious. Your job every morning when you get up is to say, how can I make my brand worth a little more money? Okay? And then finally, positioning. Positioning is simply how you explain how you're different from everybody else in the business. And we'll talk a lot about positioning in the next couple of lectures. But the difference between positioning and a brand is the symbol. Positioning is how that symbol fits into the universe of the other brands and competitive set. Okay? So how are sales and marketing different? Sales transforms inventory into cash. Marketing, development, and protection of the brand. They're not mutually supportive. And again, gosh, we need to sell more wine. Let's just dump a bunch of it at a discount house and sell it, and everybody will know you're struggling, and now you've damaged the brand. And yeah, so you need to keep the goals of both of these departments very clear. Here's a brand symbol that customers associate with your company and products. The most powerful brand in the world today, if anybody knows, it's Apple. And the interesting thing is, if you ask people what Apple makes or what they sell, ultimately what they sell, I believe the best definition of what they sell, it's not phones or computers, it's lifestyle. So they have gone beyond we make products to we create a lifestyle that you want to buy into. That's good marketing. Again, your brand is a direct measure of your marketing success. If your brand is worth a lot of money, you've done good marketing. If your brand is worth $17,000 at the end of the career and gets sold to Freddie Franzia, you've done really bad marketing. And you need to do good marketing to be successful. Okay? Finally, if you have a company, you already have a brand, and chances are you don't know what people think of your brand. Yeah, you've had some conversations, but you don't have any really good data, and that's something you need to fix. What's your position? Again, are you the cheapest? Are you Walmart? Are you Tiffany Jewelry? Do you know what your position is? Do you know when people see your product on the shelf, what they say to themselves and to their friends about that product? Well, probably not, but you should. So that's first step, is go out and do some research and find out what people really think. But the second thing is then you can affect it. You can affect your brand. You can do good marketing. You can have a plan. You can execute, and you will improve the value of your brand. So the real question isn't so much what your brand is right now. The real question is, what do you want your brand to be? And if you're not defining your position, trust me, your competitors are. Well, we'd prefer not to talk about that. That's fine, but your competitors are out there saying, they buy a bunch of their fruit. They don't really grow all their own fruit. Or, well, they say it's Pinot Noir, but it doesn't really taste like Pinot Noir. You are getting hammered out there by somebody in the market, and you're not doing anything to counteract that because you haven't defined what your brand wants to be. And again, the big question, see, it's a really big question. What do you want your brand to be? You need to answer this. This is the mission statement for your project. We want our company to be this. So how do you answer that question? Well, you build on what you have. We do these things very well. Do them better. We eliminate the negative. We've never been good at this, or, we have a problem right now in the tasting room. Some of the people aren't working right, or, our label's kind of tired. All of that needs to get fixed. But the other element that you have to keep in mind is that marketing is a long-term process. You can't fix anything today. What you are fixing today will have an impact 3, 5, 10 years down the road. So what you need to be doing today is telling me where you want to be 10 years down the road, and then explain how you're going to get there by changing what you're doing now to make that possible. Now we're into the SWOT diagram. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I always love the story of the French students who came to study with me a few years ago, and one of them said, this SWOT diagram is bullshit. And I just couldn't help laughing. The guy was so funny, but he said every year the students from the previous year program come in and make their presentations, and they all start by saying, our strength is we make very good wine. Well, that's not a strength. A strength is not something you do well. A strength is something you do better than your competition. And I want to stress that, so I'm just going to say it again. A strength is not what you do well, it's what you do better than anybody else. And the minute you put a strength on your business plan, the first question I'm going to ask is, are you sure you do that better than anybody else? And if not, get it off there. Or, if you want it to be true, make it true. So do it better than anybody else. Weaknesses, same thing. If you have a strength, you have a corresponding weakness. What are those weaknesses? You need to recognize them and ideally downplay them, eliminate them, reduce them. Opportunities are what could happen beyond what you do right now in the company. Where is the puck going to be, thanks to Wayne Gretzky? Where is the market going, and how are you going to get there first? And threats, what could possibly go wrong? I had a student years ago who came in with a project he wanted to call Pentagon. I said, you may want to rethink the name a little bit. But Pentagon, and the idea behind Pentagon was he was going to buy 1 ton of grapes from the 5 most famous vineyards in the Napa Valley and make a wine called Pentagon, and it was going to be killer. And I said, do you see any threats there? And he said, no. And I said, okay, let me give you a threat. A threat is Gallo comes in and buys one of those vineyards and refuses to sell to you. Now you've only got 4. What are you going to call it, Square? So threats are what could go wrong, and ultimately then you need to explain, well, then we'd have to change something. We'd find another vineyard. One area that most people don't do a very good job of, when they talk about strengths, they all talk about production. Oh, we have grapes. Oh, we have vineyards. But they don't talk about marketing. And I'm going to suggest that probably the easiest and best way to distinguish yourself is to do better marketing, to have a better website, to do better customer service, to exceed customer expectations more than other companies. Those are all legitimate, achievable goals in marketing. Most wineries don't have those on the list, and they should. And again, what you want to do is focus where you can get the quickest possible results and will pay long-term dividends down the road. So all of that has to do with how you approach your marketing. Ultimately, the goal is to build a brand that is widely recognized as valuable. One of the classic rules in marketing is you want to lead the category. I think there's nothing funnier than calling up every winery in the Napa Valley and asking them, what category are you in? Because they don't know. So now you've got a problem. You want to lead the category, but you don't know what category you're in. This is a little bit like saying, I want to be in the Olympics, but I haven't picked my sport yet. Doesn't work that way. You want to lead a category and define the category, lead the category, and do it better than anybody else. That's marketing. Own a word in the customer's mind. Be symbolic of something that they love. That's the essence of marketing. How can you do that? It also, by building this brand, you create value for the company. And of course, if you're the leader of a category, if you own a word in the consumer's mind that they love, if the company has real value because of its brand, then it becomes easy to sell your wines. That's the whole point. So how does marketing help all of this? Well, here's what's interesting. You walk into a wine shop and you say, gosh, I've really been hearing great things about Paul Wagner's new Chardonnay. Can I buy some? And the wine shop says, yeah, we don't have any of that. Okay, so what is the next word out of the wine shop's mouth? For those of you who are not salespeople, you think it's, but we can order it for you. But for people who are salespeople, natural salespeople know, I got a customer in front of me. The customer has money in his hand and he wants to buy wine. I'm going to tell him about a wine that's better than Paul Wagner Chardonnay that he can buy for the same amount of money, and I'm going to make this customer happy, and I don't care. So if your distribution system doesn't keep up with your marketing, and you have people who are coming into wine shops or restaurants asking for your products, and you can't supply the restaurants and wine shops with the product, all you're doing is creating business for your competition. Congratulations. A great way to make your competitors really happy. So, if we look at what marketing can do, it can build all these relationships, but you also need to get those logistics down to the point where this stuff is delivered in a way that it all makes sense. It can build long-term success. It can build relationships. It can build results, but you can't take the chance on stuff dropping through the cracks. It is complicated business. And ultimately here, I do want to talk just a little bit about this. You cannot tell your customers things. You need to listen to your customers. Remember when I said you don't know what the brand perception is out there in the marketplace? It's because you're not listening. You're only talking. And we will do a whole class on sales, and good salespeople will tell you the best salespeople are never the fastest talkers. The best salespeople are the best listeners. So Marshall McLuhan, great communications guru, says, propaganda ends where dialogue begins. What you want to do in your marketing is not just talk. You want to listen. You want to understand the market. You want to understand where the market's going and what it wants. And then you want to use that information to create both a product and a project that will appeal. So what does the market want? Well, the trade wants best buys, high scores, news, interesting photos, more buyers. What the trade really wants is they want more customers. So if your product can drive people to a retail shop, to a restaurant, to a distributor, it's valuable. When wines are really popular, they have this power. So one of your goals should be, I want to make a wine that people camp outside the door of the winery waiting for it to be released on the 1st of February. That's a legitimate marketing goal because it delivers a lot of these things. But consumers are a little different. When you ask consumers what they most want in a bottle of wine, authenticity, personality. Yeah, they want a good deal for the money. Yeah, they want 90, whatever. There are so many wines with 90 plus scores, it's not even worth keeping track anymore. But they do want authenticity and personality. And personality means being different. It not only means being real, it means being different. And one of the biggest problems we have in the world of wine is everybody wants to sound like they have the education of a sommelier, that they have the passion of a Robert Mondavi, but ultimately what they want to do is they want to sound and look just like everybody else. And that's not personality, that's boring. And we need to change that. You need to change that for your project. And here are the famous 4 P's of marketing where you apply this. Once you have a concept, once you have an idea, here's how we're different, here's how we're going to talk about it, here's how we're going to sell it. I got this great plan. What kind of promotions are we going to do? Where are we going to sell the wine? Are we only going to sell it in restaurants? Are we only going to sell it at the winery? Are we only going to sell it at San Francisco 49ers games in the VIP boxes? Where are we going to sell it? How much are we going to charge? That's a whole lecture just in itself, by the way. And then ultimately product. The 4 P's of marketing: promotion, placement. So promotion, the campaigns you create to promote the product. Placement, where you're going to sell it. Pricing, how much does it cost? And product, what is it you're actually selling? Those 4 things create your positioning and your brand. So they're the 4 P's of marketing. And in the U.S. market, if you ask a consumer which of those elements by far is the most important in terms of determining their perception of quality, price. What they will tell you over and over again is a $15 bottle of wine is better than a $10 bottle of wine, and a $50 bottle of wine is really good. Now, we're in Napa. We know there are some pretty crummy $50 bottles of wine. Doesn't matter. In the marketplace, price really does affect the perception of quality. So you have to be careful. You come into, I know one of my clients actually introduced a very good Napa Valley Cabernet, $17 a bottle, had a heck of a time selling it because people assumed there was something wrong with that wine, that it would be $17 a bottle. He eventually raised the price and sold out. So price really does affect that perception. That's your brand. Your message to the world is promotion, placement, pricing, product. So here's your summary. Know what your message is. What makes you special? How are you different? How are you going to explain that? Who are you selling to? Identify your audience. And I want to know specifically, is it this demographic group? Is it people who live only on the west side of Highway 29? Is it people who really love kayaking? I don't care what it is, but I want some identifiable groups that you have targeted. And then you've got to deliver the message, delivering the message with promotion, placement, price, and product. And the last element of this, evaluating the results. Okay, we did it. Did it work? What could we fix? What needs fixing? What could we boost? All of that comes from the evaluation. Okay? Hope you got some help out of this. Hope this clarified a little bit. The next lecture will be all about the U.S. market in general, what's going on, what's happening. So hopefully that will give you some ideas on how to answer these first 2 questions, which is what message would be appealing to that audience, and second of all, where is there an audience that I could own? Finally, you need to define expectations. You need to be clear about what you're trying to do and what you hope to accomplish. So provide goals. We want to do this, this, and this, and it's going to cost this much. I'm not a huge believer in image enhancement. I want to be able to measure things. So if you say we're going to do a marketing campaign, I'm going to say, so how are you going to measure the results? Are you going to count the number of Facebook friends you've made as a result of this? Facebook friends almost never become customers, so that's a problem. Are you going to measure the number of people who sign up for your wine club, sign up for an email from you, visit the winery, cash in a coupon? There are lots of different ways to measure things, but I want measurements because measurements allow you to manage. You can't manage what you can't measure. So this is our goal. This is how much it's going to cost. This is what we expect to to achieve, and then at the end you are able to be accountable. Because bad marketing that says we're just going to spend money and hope things get better, that makes all marketing people look bad, makes me look bad, makes my company look bad. We don't want to do that. So be accountable, provide goals, provide budgets, and give us something measurable in terms of results. Okay? See you at the next lecture, and that'll be about the U.S. market, where it's been, and where it's going.